love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment, but we got a full show with you today. I want to say welcome to episode 668 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NEIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. In short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host today. It's going to be to start us off, AD Drew. Charles Bishop will join us. And we're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, with Ralph Cooper, I should say, multi-Hall of Famer, that is, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, let's jump right into it as we get Drew coming on board here. Let's ask Drew. Drew, how you doing today?
My brother. I am doing great. Weather is great in Atlanta today. You know, last week weather was miserable in this part of the country. So, yeah, other than that, I'm doing fine, Dr. Cavil. Just lovely day. 25 days before D-Day comes, so.
Oh, man, it's flying by just like that. Look at that. Right on time. We got none other, whichever one he wants to be today. We have Charles Bishop. Charles Bishop, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. Ripping and running to get in here, but I tell you what, looking forward to today in terms of what all topics we're going to discuss and talk about another day in HBCU Sports Lab.
I want to take a little personal privilege. Let me first say today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency LLC is a company that provides sporting, educational consulting, and data analytics. And with that being said, it's amazing, and I just want to shout out some of your accolades. A lot of times being Dr. Cavil, being the front side of this, obviously the name coming into the show, a lot of credit is heaped on me, but really your commitment, the genius that you all bring to the table oftentimes is I'm thinking about topics and whatever, and obviously people think since I'm the main host or whatever, if you would call it, that I'm driving these topics. And at times I do. But there are other topics when y'all bring things to the table that I didn't think about, or I'm thinking in a different direction that really drives the content and end up being some of the best shows. So I just want to say, appreciate you all and make sure people recognize or give you your flowers now in terms of what you all bring to the table in your own special way. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it, Doc.
Appreciate it, Doc. Appreciate you from the provost of HBCU sports.
Exactly.
I appreciate too kind. We got an update in terms of HBCU athletic directors. Let me say this directly before we get into some other news that you all might want to share. HBCU athletic director Dr. Kevin Granger was placed on leave, denies sexual assault allegations. This is from HBCU Sports by Chris Stevens. Through his attorney, Texas Southern Athletic Director Dr. Kevin Granger has responded to legal actions filed against him. And Granger's legal representation citation said that any claim of any wrongdoing is false, according to the statements reported by Terrence Harris on the Houston Defender. Quote, these are serious allegations and they deserve serious response, which will make at the appropriate time and in court, end quote. Granger's attorney, Lydia Quinones Hollins, wrote in the statement, quote, in the meantime, I can tell you that no sexual assault occurred and any indication that it did is false, end quote. Dr. Kevin Granger is an incredible, well-respected part of the TSU community. His work there over many years has created opportunities for the school and its students that did not exist before, end quote. So wanted to open up with that statement of response and due diligence in terms of that. With that being said, I'm going to go to you, Charles, in terms of HBCU sports media. What's on your mind in terms of what's going fast and furious? I know it slowed down a little bit, but quite a bit out there. What's on your mind?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. Edward Waters, coach and player, selected to the HBCU All-Star Dream Classic team, and this comes from the SIAC.com. Edward Waters University is celebrating a significant achievement as senior guard Jacoby Williams has been selected to participate in the third annual HBCU All-Star Dream Classic, an event celebrating the top talent from HBCUs. The event will take place Saturday, August 9th at the historic Rucker Park in Harlem, New York. The women's game is scheduled for 4:30, followed by the men's game at 6:30. The HBCU All-Star Dream Classic, held at the iconic Holcomb Rucker Park in Harlem, brings together 40 of the best men's and women's basketball players from nearly 30 HBCUs, including the institutions from the SIAC, the CIAA, the MEAC, the SWAC, and NAIA conferences. The event not only highlights athletic prowess, but also celebrates the rich cultural heritage of HBCUs. So, kudos to Jacoby Williams. And then head coach Eric Jackson will be the women's basketball head coach, and as he has been selected to coach at the third annual HBCU All-Star Dream Classic. So kudos to Eric Jackson and Jacoby Williams.
Great information. Great indeed. And congratulations to all those involved. Let me go to you, Drew. What's on your mind today?
Doc, I don't care what time of the year, we cannot have a show without talking about football.
Yeah.
So
that is true. It's hard to deny that. Facts are facts.
Let's go to the BAC. Let's go to Norfolk. Actually, let's go to Philadelphia. And Norfolk State Norfolk State and Delaware State was announced they are going to be potentially playing a game in Philadelphia at the Link this year. And let's be real, everybody. When we saw Deshaun Jackson and Michael Vick were the head coaches at these two teams, that was one of the first things everybody said was those who have got to meet up in the Link. Well, looks like that matchup is potentially going to happen this year. So we'll stay tuned as we get more details on that. But I think that game is going to happen. I think it will be great that that they come back to the place where both of them made their Mike Vick made his fame both in Philly and Atlanta, and when Deshaun Jackson made a lot of his fame. And to top it off, Norfolk getting that here we go, y'all. He's getting that prime effect, that prime treatment, because his first game that he will be coaching against Rutgers will be on national TV also, and that's set for 3:30 on September 13th. So that's the first road game that they'll be that the Spartans will have this year. So great, good job. Anytime we get some national exposure, be it because of Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, Lil Bo Peep, we don't care. We want national exposure.
There it is.
There it is. Well said. Good stuff. Let's dive a little bit more into the business side of that. I think a lot of people kind of connected the dots with the opportunity with these coaches coming in that they could lend some of their brand in partnering with the institution and the MEAC, as we saw to some degree with Coach Prime. Obviously, that star with Coach Prime is much larger in terms of Hall of Famer already announced. But still, we see what that looks like and how it exists How do you see something like playing the game in the link? How does that create that brand? Are you looking at it more in terms of the television exposure, and how does it help connecting financially more with recruiting? Which part of that do you see, or in attendance? Which part would you pick, if any or all of them, and why? Starting with you, Charles.
I mean, it's the student experience, and we've heard Dr. McClellan talk about the student experience. The student experience of playing in a professional football stadium, undoubtedly, that's something that goes a long way towards recruitment. So I think that's one of the things that really jumps out for me in terms of getting an opportunity to not only play in a pro football stadium, but spread your exposure to the Philadelphia and surrounding area. So it's a great thing in terms of, the proximity, Norfolk State and Delaware State to Philadelphia.
Good stuff. Very true. Drew, your thoughts on that?
Oh, everything. I agree with you, Charles, on everything you said. Two things about this particular game. Number one, we got to get people there. I don't care what the student experience is. The student experience is not good when you're playing in front of 50 people, or what appears to be 50 people when you're in a 70,000 seat stadium. The other thing that kind of concerns me with this game, I believe that's going to be a Thursday night game. And because it's a Thursday night game, you won't tend to have people travel in for that game. Also, it's tough on students to get to that game. So that is a concern that I have, because we have seen the optics of HBCU football on Thursday night with nobody in the stands. And that's the one thing I don't want to see with this historic matchup.
So, great opportunity for the administration to go to asynchronous classes on Friday and get some busloads going to the game in Philadelphia. I mean, you can rally around this thing. I mean, you can think through it and really make it a really pleasant experience. Talk about the student experience, not just for the athletics, but for the student body in general.
Oh, I agree with you, but we got to have administrators who think outside the box and think of those things like you just, especially when you think of the proximity of Philadelphia to both of these schools. This is not like this is an 8-hour bus trip for either one of these schools. Correct. Delaware State, I don't know if they are the home team, but Delaware State is not that far from Philadelphia, and they have played in Philadelphia before. Norfolk is a very reasonable drive. Obviously, with a game in there 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're not trying to drive home back to Norfolk, Virginia after the game, but it's still a very doable trip.
Great points, and I think you hit it on the nail. As we see the more commercialization, if not business framework of college sports at the FBS level, with the what I like to call the Super 2, Power 2, collectively, autonomous 4, I think it becomes even more important to understand that you got to stretch yourself in taking advantage of branding and marketing opportunities. And so by what both of you said is it really the point about getting administrators to really do that.
And one last thing about that, got to reach out to the local community. Let's get the high schools there. Let's get the YMCA there. Let's get the Parks and Rec there. Let's get some of these other people there. Let's reduce the cost of their tickets or get somebody to sponsor their tickets so that we can get them and get this next generation exposure to the HBCU culture also.
I don't want to hold on to this, but I think Johnny Thomas brings up a great question. Has Norfolk State had any 20K home attendance games in the past? Yes, they have. Usually it's traditionally against their rival, against Virginia State or Hampton University. They've reached that 20,000 mark or real close to it, and sometimes over it. Not a lot of games, but I think you can't put the chicken before the horse. Just because you hadn't done it at home, sometimes that's the very reason that you go on the road, because you can create a different environment that does that. Grambling State is an example of a rural area where they mastered it. Now, it was a while back, but there's still some frameworks where that work. So sometimes we got to get out our own way and not just blame what is not working in one location and how it doesn't work in another location. So sometimes you have to be more imaginative, more innovative in terms of your approach of doing something non-traditional to get a different framework. And that doesn't mean that I don't think that you need to concentrate of doing things at home. But there's more than one way to do it. You don't just have to do it at home. You don't have to wait till you do it at home. Sometimes you have to take a mixed method approach to finding new ways to get things done. But great question and great points made there. Let's take our first break, come back on the other side. We're going to get into the interview mode. We have a guest that we're going to bring to you, give some updates of what that looks like. So we will bring that to you after this break. We'll come back on the other side.
Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick! The quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less. He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Brian Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app. As we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Football fans, HBCU football is back in the ATL with the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC, Southern Eagles, Jaguars, the Marching Sound Machine, the Human Jukebox. The kickoff trophy is up for grabs, and bragging rights are on the line. The rivalry is real. Bring the family and join us pre-game for the fun-filled Coca-Cola fan experience, including band jamborees, food, activations, and fellowship. For tickets and information, visit MEACSWACchallenge.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a loss, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As you see, we have Brandon King that has joined us. Checking a little bit, we'll make sure to check on your audio a little bit. And we should have Coach Payne. Is he coming in?
Looks like he's having a little bit of difficulty. I'm trying to get him. Let's see. Yeah, he's trying to work through something. So wait a minute.
We gonna put Coach Payne back in the corner and do some extra laps. And he's this tenacious coach, playoff NIA coach, seeking championships, and he can't log in. How you gonna recruit some athletes and can't? I'm gonna talk about it. Yeah, I can do that. This is Brother Payne.
You can't talk about my homeboy like that.
I actually had the opportunity to, and let me choose my words correctly, Charles, because you'll understand this. We don't get no trouble. I had the opportunity to be a part of the group that transitioned.
The intake process.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to use intake, but I was just going to say bringing this brother into the fraternity of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated when he was there at Alabama A&M. And so Delta Gamma chapter. So when we do get him in, bring that up. We'll do that right. With that being said, let's kind of pivot a little bit.
Hold up, Doc. I think, Coach, if you can hear me, log out and log back in. Make sure you hit allow your camera and allow your microphone for me. I think hopefully that'll clear up your problems that you're having.
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna talk about the brother. I'm gonna talk about that.
You gotta remotivate him, man.
yeah, exactly. Not just seen him, but trust me, when I see him again, he will know about it.
His job is to get X's and O's. He hires somebody to do all the technical stuff.
And let me say this when we get a little chance to explain this, so we don't have to do it when he's on. I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit. But I was testifying, for lack of better words, in our group chat as Drew brought on the fact that he had the opportunity to transition from when it looked like he was going to go coach at Allen University, and he's moving to Talladega, back to Talladega, if you would, to continue to coach the women's team. And he also gets the role as the AD doing it. But the connection there, as Drew talked about, is the fact that the president that was at Denmark got the opportunity, and we made that announcement to become the president of Talladega. And if you do right and you do well, oftentimes those relationships pan off. And I can't speak for him, but I'm sure to some degree that may a little bit part of how this all happened. But I also talk about that this brother must be living right. Hopefully I don't get him in trouble from the standpoint that he had his opportunity to choose for several jobs, interviewed for some of them. Many of them made an offer, got into that type of dialogue to do that. Oddly, one had an opportunity where he couldn't quite get an interview. But one of the things I want to kind of talk about this interview as we go through it is for those coaches that are assistants. And it's my understanding, and I had the pleasure, who you bring along assistants into the business, both men and women. Many of them are doing well. One of them happens to be over there at Alabama State. You gave the first opportunity, not that she didn't earn it, but the fact that you were there. Some of these coaches are now at the high school level. You've done that. And you've even given people like myself an opportunity. I've never had a chance to share this with you, but I might as well do it live here. When I was transitioning from the corporate sector to look at my next opportunity, one of the things was to start my consulting business, and it's THG. We've been in the business over 25 years, Drew, Charles, as you know, consulting quietly in the background, not necessarily getting a lot of face time. Don't need the credit, but affectionately helping literally presidents, chancellors, commissioners, coaches, ADs along the way. Small, they've done most of the work. I don't want to act like I'm this person that really gets it done, but small. But how that started is real point that I want to get to is Coach Payne gave me that opportunity. Coach Brother Payne, I'll say that again. He gave me that opportunity to come down to Wiley and Texas College and create this classic. And I don't know if he quite remembers that, but real kinship and brotherhood came on to that. So he is the reason in a lot of ways that I'm here with that business, because I pushed forward. We did a classic in Birmingham some 20 years ago when fledgling with his head basketball coach, Alabama Coach Pettaway, that gave me another opportunity, putting South Carolina State, Miles College, and Benedict College together in a classic there in Birmingham. So when I had a little bit of opportunity to kind of push and support him at getting the Valley job, that was big. Coach Byron, that played a short time at Alabama, in the role that he got at Prairie View and what he's been able to do. Tony, another one of our frat brothers, played a small role in terms of him being able to move and come over assistant coach at Grambling State, and then later Texas Southern with Cynthia Cooper. And now he's the assistant coach at Baylor University. So to see these folks thrive and fly and just be good people, certainly good brothers, as we like to say, it's fascinating. So it's a little different when you get a chance to interview Coach Payne from that perspective. And I don't want to cut it short, but AD Drew shared with me and didn't realize that he interviewed with you for a coaching opportunity. It didn't quite work out. We'll leave that there. But this is full circle, and you never know. So it's important that you do these kind of things. So I wanted to share that with the public, put you kind of on Front Street, but I wanted to say thank you for that. Now I sit as the dean of HBCU sports, but the dean of the college of education. Crazy. It's hard to believe. How you doing, Coach Payne?
Man, I am doing well, man. I'm blessed, man. Enjoying life, enjoying the family. It's really been a roller coaster for me this summer, but it's been well. It's been well received, well blessed here, man.
Good stuff. Let me start here. Talk a little bit about just that. What would you share with coaches before we get into this opportunity and how things changed and how fast it was? What do you share in terms of navigating the space? Obviously, you wanted your opportunity. It finally came. Yours was extremely unique because you were in oil and gas as a mechanical engineer that people, unless they read closely your bio, really don't probably realize that you didn't come traditionally, maybe as some in terms of sport management as it was fledgling or health, PE, kinesiology coach from that perspective. You came over, if you would, out of engineering. Talk a little bit about what would you tell young coaches about getting into the business specifically?
Well, my wife always tell me, she said, you fooled me. She said, when I met you 25, 26 years ago, you swindled me, told me you were going to be an engineer, how you going to make all this money. She said, next thing I know, you were out here working for pennies at a little small HBCU. You fooled me.
That's pretty good. That's true. Shout out to your wife. Tell her I said, hey, she's a trooper.
Yes, indeed. But hey, man, it first of all, it just is being patient and staying steadfast in what you love. I was a mechanical engineer major, and I went with that because I thought that was the thing to make some money. But basketball was my passion. You was out, don't forget, it wasn't just a major. You was out there on the rig. You out there on the oil rig. Boy, I've been a millionaire by now if I'd stayed out there. Y'all wouldn't even be talking to me. I hope my wife ain't listening to this, but she's shaking her head. But look, it is true blessing because I just learned to be humble and stay hard, working hard. That's come from good parenting. My dad, I see my dad worked 3 jobs, And so when I got into this game coaching, at Texas College, I was working in the dorm, financial aid, did physical plant for a year, director of physical plant and assistant coach, because that's what you did back in then and starting in 99. When the president or VP came to you and said, I need you to do, you say, yes, sir. And you keep going. You didn't negotiate no money. They told me what I was going to make. And but I just continue to grow, and I just give advice to young coaches is that don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid to learn something outside of coaching, because you never know where that job you took working in the dorms or working in financial aid can assist you somewhere else to get in a head coaching job. Everybody wants to make it big quick. Everybody wants to go to Division I. But I was just glad to be working at an HBCU because I'm an HBCU graduate, and that's all I love. I just wanted to try to be the best employee I could for Texas College back in '99.
Yeah, that's really good. The other thing before we'll take this first break, we'll come back and share the mic with these gentlemen and let them get in some questions and get about the transition. You shared with me as we were prepping for this in regards to one, I knew for a while one of your sons is going to play football as a scholarship at Allen, but your older son, that happens to be a brother of ours as well, is joining your staff.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. We gonna keep it in the family. My oldest son, they do it. Why not us?
Hey, was that gonna be a deal breaker if that couldn't happen?
Look here, when you've been doing it a long time, you start making some negotiations. You know what I'm saying?
I'll say it like that.
But it is a joy to have Andre, who just crossed at Tougaloo College. He's sitting over here to my right, looking at me all side of my head. But he will be joining my staff, and he will be in graduate school there at Talladega. I know it's going to be. It was great coaching him because I actually got a chance to coach him in junior college. But to have him at the right side of me as assistant coach, I can't wait till that day and just look down. I might have a tear in my eye, but he will be joining the staff.
Well, before we go to this break, let him show his face on there real quick.
Yeah.
Go on, show your face.
Say hello.
Shout out to the good brothers over there.
Hello, good bro. All right. Good stuff. Well, let's take our first break. We'll come back on the other side and let this go on there. We see Brandon King's son over there wanting to get a little FaceTime. We're gonna shout him out too as well. We're a family atmosphere, so make sure that he gets a little love. We see him on there. So we'll be right back after this second break. We'll come back on the other side, continue this interview, and let Drew, Brandon, and Charles ask Coach Payne some questions. We'll be right back.
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Cavil's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Cavil's Voice, Cavil's Voice, CavilsVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
This is Ryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Football fans, HBCU football is back in the ATL with the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC, Southern, Eagles, Jaguars, the Marching Sound Machine, the Human Jukebox. The kickoff trophy is up for grabs, and bragging rights are on the line. The rivalry is real. Bring the family and join us pre-game for the fun-filled Coca-Cola fan experience, including band jamborees, food, activations, and fellowship. For tickets and information, visit MEACSWACchallenge.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment, so we brought in the backups to make sure that they take it to another level, which is AD Drew and Brandon King. With that being said, let me move forward and let Charles follow up with a question to Coach Payne.
Yeah, Bro Payne, I wanted to ask you this question in terms of teaming back up with Dr. Todd in terms of this dual role that you have in terms of coaching and being the athletic director, but just what is the vision here for Talladega Athletics? And I'll be more specific. You know, is Talladega trying to get in the football business?
Well, you have to understand Dr. Todd. He understands that athletics is the front porch to an institution when it comes, especially small HBCUs. Academics is always going to be your foundation, but athletics is your front porch. And so to team back up with him, because I worked for him as AD and head coach and physical plant director at Denmark Tech. And when I arrived there in 2020, we had 2 sports. When I left there in 2023, we was up to 9 sports. First thing, when I interviewed with him, he said, how important is athletics, coach? And I told him, I said, Doc, who's the head coach at University of Alabama football? He said, Nick Saban. I said, who the president? And he couldn't do that but sit there and laugh. I said, that's how important athletics is. And so he's brought me back aboard with him to help him. Under his leadership, I know that this athletic department will thrive. We make up a great percentage of the enrollment there, just like a lot of small HBCUs, the athletics. We have, I think right now, 10 sports. The first thing Doc is going to do is get there and get everything stabilized. And my job as his athletic director is to make sure that from the athletic perspective, that I'm doing my part and I'm getting my coaches to understand that we have to watch the budget and making sure that we're working within the college financial situation. And are there other things in the future? Possibly, but we're going to take it one day at a time. Talladega has so much rich history. The oldest private HBCU in the state of Alabama, not Tuskegee, Alabama. It is Talladega.
Well said. Since Drew's laughing on that, we're gonna let him jump in. Coach Payne, you see, Coach Payne watched the show, so he knows a little history. And like I said, these folks go back a little bit.
Yeah, I think Dre just took a shot at me because he know that's where I met him at when I was at Tuskegee. So that I don't hold that against you. See, I'm gonna tell you how much I don't hold it against him. What he didn't fail to tell you is I sent my son to play for him when he was coaching at Denmark. So that tells you how much how much I believe in this guy and this in the job that he would do, because I've seen it and I've witnessed it with what he did for my family. Because he took my son when there were very few other people who would take him at that point in time because of injury. So and I just want to thank you on here publicly, Andre, for doing that for me, man.
No, thank you for sending them to me, and you're more than welcome.
All right. Now we got all that chatter about how you got there.
Okay.
Where are we going, Andre? You hold a role similar to what Kevin Harrod did when he was at Talladega, being the women's basketball coach and the athletic director, and we know the success that. Most recent success that Talladega had when it comes to basketball on the men's side and the women's side. But we also know the difficulties that Talladega has faced recently, and not just Talladega, colleges in general, because we see colleges closing left and right and up and down. So what is the future for you as far as athletic director? And let's take this to the X's and O's, because that's what you really love to do. Mm-hmm. You're late in the game, taking a job in June. So how is this going to affect your 25-26 season, considering you're so late getting into the position this year?
Well, from a basketball perspective, you got to understand that that team there is my team. In the short term that I left to go to Allen, there was only one young lady who transferred out. So I'm returning the core of the team, and even the 2 young ladies that we had signed, even they stayed aboard. And so basketball, it's going to take care of itself. Yes, it's going to be a challenge. I wouldn't sit up here and tell y'all it's not going to be a challenge, because anytime you're on the financial constraints, it's always a challenge, because you got to make sure you're making the right moves. You want to make sure that you're providing the student athletes with a quality life for being an athlete at the institution, but you want to win too, because all of your alums, fans, friends, They want to see you put W's put marks in the W column. What I have to do as an athletic director, all of the coaches, I have to make sure that we're on one accord. That's the first thing. Make sure they understand where we are and what we're facing. But then teach them how to navigate through that, because it can be done. I've done it at other institutions. We just have to be real mindful of the moves that we're making. That's it. But you're right. The tradition and the history of men and women's basketball, and let me not leave volleyball, who I think was 3-time conference winner, and baseball, 2 or 3 times conference winners. So rich tradition.
Championship, and walking in right now with a championship in baseball.
And it even goes back. People don't realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I am right about that. Even Coach Ben Jobe, his first college job was at Talladega College. Mm-hmm. See, that's history right there. Say it again.
I say, talk heavy. Talk to him.
Yeah. See that's the history that we got to build up on, and that we got to rest our head up on. I mean, think about it. The NCAA has an award that they give to the top African American coach every year, named after Ben Jobe. And believe me, by the end of this season here, I plan for everybody in America to know that this was his first collegiate job at Talladega College as a head coach.
All right, I'm gonna give you a freebie, Dre. When you go to Ad Sport, flag football, and we'll talk about it later. Go ahead, Brandon.
yes. It's the hottest thing out there.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Good afternoon, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. I guess it would be kind of safe to say that your path to coaching has been slightly unconventional, definitely outside of the norm. As I was listening to you tell kind of your story and everything, what are some of the things like you learned from being on the oil rigs or being the head of physical plant and some of the other stops along the way that you can kind of incorporate into not only your coaching role, but your role as athletic director as well?
Well, one of the main things I learned, I learned how to follow leadership. And I try to tell all these young coaches that first you got to learn how to follow leadership. You got to understand protocol, and that's what I learned. On the oil rig, I mean, I spent about 6 months, and I learned you don't want to be involved in a hurricane because I got out there to Gulf of Mexico quick when that hurricane. I learned that I didn't want to be on the oil rig. I tell you that. But then having roles, I've served in so many different roles at the small HBCU as physical plant director at 2 institutions, of course, AD at 4 institutions. I've worked in housing, I've worked in financial aid, admissions. I've probably done everything on the student affairs side except for be a VP. So it gives me an understanding. I've had the blessing and opportunity to sit in cabinet meetings, board meetings, and so I learned the real inside. And I take pride in knowing these things because I understand what presidents and vice presidents are going through, where most coaches don't get a chance to see the inside of that. I've been. I'm gonna give y'all a funny story. My first, maybe funny, it was sad back then. I got ready for my first game against Paul Quinn, and I'm waiting outside the cabinet meeting, and I'm 25 years old, head coach, and the business office didn't have a check, so I finally the secretary let me in the cabinet meeting, and the president said, "What you want, Payne?" I said, "Sir, I got to go play Paul Quinn. We ain't got a check." He looked over at the VP of Bid and Finance. She said, "Cancel the game." He said, "We're not doing that. We ain't canceling no game." He went in his pocket, pulled out 75 in cash. He asked all his administrators. They pulled out 20, 25. They sent me up the road about $180 in their pocket. He said, will that work, coach? I said, "Yes, sir." Yes, sir. My boy, hey, we went down there and beat Paul Quinn. I had them fed them going up. Got gas. All I could get was bread, ham, bologna. And my manager said, "Coach, you think they're going to be satisfied with that?" I looked back there in that mirror about 30 minutes later, boy, they had them sandwiches stacked that tall. So look here. I've learned to make it work when it wasn't no way, baby. I've learned to make it when it wasn't no way, when it just didn't seem. So that's how I try to install that in my players. Understand that, hey, you may not have all you want, But just as long as you got a few things you need, you can make it work.
With that being said, I promise to get you out of here on this. Don't want to take all your time, but I do want to ask you, since Charles just jumped in here and, your frat brother did you like that about football, I'm going to ask you, at one time there was talk that Talladega was in a serious looking at Division II, and a lot of people thought the SIAC. I know coming in this, you can't necessarily answer that question now, but can you talk about how you would go about studying that? And obviously, I'd be remiss, since you gave my first opportunity at PhD, not to ask you if you need help in the consulting role of analyzing such a move. You got a frat brother right here that would certainly look at an opportunity in all seriousness to help and support a HBCU, do whatever's necessary, whether that is staying right there in a strong HBCU athletic conference in terms of the new name, or obviously looking at the opportunity of Division II and possibly a SIAC. Not that I have any pull in terms of either one of the commissioners of making that happen, but hey, let's just talk. But in seriousness, what does it look like when you have to go kind of talk about Charles' framework, Drew's framework, certainly Brandon, when he said your previous moves? What does it look like when you're doing the deep dive for those that coming up on July 1st, which is a key date for a lot of folks in transitioning? Your experience of being at a lot of different places, what does it look like when you're at the table, either helping, supporting, or doing it yourself, and analyzing the data? What does you have to do to come up and provide that to a president or AD, if you're not the AD as a coach, or AD, present it to the president, to the board? What does that process look like in your experience?
Well, I've been in that situation before because I was the interim AD at Texas College when we brought back football. The one thing that Talladega does have, we have a brand new turf football field, a beautiful field that's already sitting on campus. I mean, when you go on that field, I mean, it's better than a good majority of the SWAC teams' field, to be honest with you. And we play soccer on it. You have to do your research. I mean, that's first thing. And then and going into and look at other small private HBCUs. For example, the first thing you want to do is somebody like Allen University, because they Edward Waters, they're two of the youngest school for starting football. Hoping that they'll give you some data on, what it takes or whatever of that nature. The most important thing is solidifying them donors. I heard you say you would help me do some research, but I need you to go in that pocket if we ever decide to.
I did that too. I provided some income.
I know it. But solidifying.
As they say, I know how this works. You take a little bit and pay some back.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the big thing. You have to get the community. This is what you have to do. You have to get the community behind you, because Talladega just couldn't do it on their own. You need to actually the city of Talladega to get behind you, but to help you with some offsetting some of those costs. Because fans and alumni, they gonna rah, they want it, and they gonna give that $500, that $1,000, and that's it. But you need those consistent donors. So it's a lot of research that has to go into it. It's a lot of work, a lot of grind, a lot of shaking hand, building relationship, because there's nothing that the institution can do on its own. I truly believe you have to have those outside resources, which is the city, to come in and help you move that forward. Because you have to show its mutual benefit for the institution and the city.
We'll get you out on this. Any shout outs when you want to provide your proud alumni? You did a good job of shouting out Talladega's history and your direct supervisors and the board. So we'd be remiss if we didn't let you finalize that with shout out to alumni or your president and the board again.
Yes, I just want to say, hello to all the Talladegans out there, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity that Dr. Todd has given me. I'm appreciative of Texas College, Wiley College, Denmark Technical College, Mississippi Valley State, Allen University, because all those institutions groomed me and got me prepared for this task in which I got to take. And one thing I want to say is this is what I live on now. This is what I stand on. I believe in. People ask me all the time, well, Payne, how can you move around? You get different jobs, and I know I'm blessed, and I'm not ashamed to say it. But when I leave this earth, good Lord ain't gonna ask me how many games I won. He's want to know with the blessing that He gave me, how did I bless others? And that's what I live on. That's what I stand on.
Mm-hmm. I can respect that, and certainly that's true from my experience interacting with you. You live that. You're just not something you talk or say. With that being said, we'll take our last break and come back on the other side. We'll talk a little bit more about the business side of it, this new dynamic in terms of FCS football and the 12 potential games that they're looking at. Want to get these three other individuals to talk a little bit more about the business side of that and what it looks like. Thanks, Coach Payne.
Hey, I'm 90 minutes down the road. If you need me, Payne, holler at me. I'll be there.
Yes, sir. See y'all later. Right. Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach.
All right
then.
Where they would. Never mind. I'm sorry. Hey, go to a break.
You don't do that. We're a non-hazing organization, baby.
Cut the break.
I'm attorney Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Attention football fans. The Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff is back in Atlanta on August 23rd. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC Southern. Join us at Center Park Stadium for a full day of tailgating, football, and bands. For more information and tickets, visit MEACSWACChallenge.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville. We're inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have the team and the crew with us. That's Charles Bishop, A.D. Drew, and Brandon King, bringing you some insight like none other, particularly when they add the business perspective and their expertise to the platform, and I appreciate that. Let's look a little bit about this FCS football 12 game. I know we brought it up couple of weeks ago just in terms of the news segment. Well, I want to take a little deeper dive because I want to get your perspective on this. FCS football programs, including many HBCUs, are one step closer to expanding their regular season scheduled to 12 games starting in 2026. You all are aware that there are some years when you have the extra weekend in the calendar where you're able to get 12 games currently. But it's not something that is automatic every year. It has to fit within the calendar when you get that extra Saturday. We've seen this the last year and this year in terms of the 12 games being thing. But if this policy passed by the NCFCS Oversight Committee, which recently approved a key recommendation that would make it the 12-game schedule standard for every year. What changing from the FCS for football, if you ask that question, is currently FCS football teams play 11 or 12 games, as I just spoke about in some years, depending on the calendar, when there are 13 weeks between Labor Day weekend and the FCS playoff selection show, that first weekend before Thanksgiving. If you would, typically that Thanksgiving teams are allowed to play 12 games in a year, only 12-week teams play. Why the team matters for HBCU, this is where I want to get your perspective. Some people would see this positive, where you get to play more money games, play more teams in terms of that looks like. But then the question come in with some of the things we're talking about with the Power 2, particularly SEC Big 12, where it looks like there's some dynamics where they may be playing about it. There may be more frameworks where the scheduling measure, as you're hearing talked about, bantering back and forth, of what that looks like, of how that may affect whether teams want to play FCS teams. And so how does that work? You have the conundrum specifically with the MEAC, where now with just 5 conference games, you're expanding their schedule, which means instead of when they have 11-game schedules, 6 and 5, or now when they have 12, 7 independent games they're looking at, you're talking about now 8. How does that affect you from that perspective? The long week when you look at the SWAC, obviously, how does that affect them? Is that something that they want to do, looking at that? So I'm interested in terms of your thoughts on that. I'm going to go to you first, Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of this 12-game schedule? Are you in favor of it? Let me ask you that first.
Yeah, on the surface, I am, but there are a number of questions that I have to ask. And yeah, first of all, on the Division I level, you have to take each conference independently. For the SWAC, being able to go out and only have to schedule 4 games, not that bad. Most of your SWAC institutions play for the Celebration Bowl. They don't play with the backup of going to the FCS playoffs. So, you know, they have that one goal in mind. So it's not necessarily going to affect them a whole lot. The question is, are we going to lose our money games? And that's just in general. So if we're losing this, if we lose our money games, can we create another classic to replace that potential revenue from a money game?
That's what I was thinking.
Or does this extra home game become a cash cow for us? And we in this money pit, and we just start dropping money in there, because now we got to pay security, we got to pay ticket takers, we got to pay concession staff, etc. So we all know the cost. Well, the people on this panel know the cost that go into a home game. A lot of people out here watching us may not know exactly how much it actually costs to put on a home football game. And then you've got the MEAC, who, like I said, 7 non-conference games. You play more games out of your conference than in your conference. Will that force the MEAC to go with a scheduling alliance with another conference? If they do go with a scheduling alliance, how does that affect the Celebration Bowl, and whose contract is coming up real soon with the MEAC? So those are some things. And let me take it down to my level on the Division II level for the SIAC and the CIAA, because those conferences have 8-game conference schedule, where right now those conferences only play 10 games. So for a SWAC or MEAC team to pick up an extra game against a CIAA or SIAC team, because we have lost some rivalries, and there are some good natural rivalries out there that would be that for the FCSs would work. They do not logistically work at the Division II level, because the schedule on the Division II level does not allow it. So, like I say, I like it in theory, But I still have a lot of questions that somebody is going to need to answer before you sell me on the entire package.
Just like Drew, he adds more questions and confounding variables to the question in terms of Allen's. So I'm going to turn to Charles while he has the confounding look on his face and ask him, as you started to allude to of wanting more potential for classics of getting back to that model, or even home games with rivals or non-traditional, traditional rivals. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me look, because it begets a question. Let me go back to what you said, Drew. The scheduling for Division II, it prevents them from adding a potential FCS or HBCU matchup.
Right now, on the Division II level, you SIAC and CIAA only play 10 games. You're allowed 11 games on the Division II level. But because the SIAC and the CIAA play a championship game, they have to reserve one of those games for the championship game, which means everybody only has 10 regular season games.
But didn't they open up week 0 now?
You could play week 0, but you still only have
to play
11 games total.
Okay.
And with the CIAA, the SIAC, because we play, and the PSAC, let me throw that out there, we play a championship game in those 3 conferences.
Yeah,
so you have to, you can only schedule.
I get it from that standpoint.
10 games.
You can only schedule 10 because one of those teams is going to play in the championship will be their 11th game.
Correct. Let
me ask you this in terms of the model. Was that just a Division I model, or if you had 12 or more teams that your championship game function as a non-regular season game?
Yes, that's only on the
because when they created that rule, it was all across every level. But since then, that rule changed. All right,
because the SIAC,
I want to make sure
have more than 12 teams.
As we're up against it, I think people get that part. I want to follow it with Charles and make sure Brandon can get in here and get his perspective before we go too much down the rabbit hole. But where are you with that?
Well, I guess before I got to Division II perspective, I thought kind of going to a 12-game schedule, it creates flexibility for FCS teams or HBCU too, in terms of scheduling another potential revenue team. And my first thought was, scheduling a Tuskegee, or something to that effect. If you're regionally within, if you're Jackson State or somebody, in terms of that being a 12 game or whatever the case might be. But you gave me a different perspective, so it changed what I was thinking.
My bad, man.
In terms of I'm all.
But no, that's important, because all those are variables that our viewers, some of them will realize that and will know it and are thinking that. So, Charles, the fact that you brought it up is important, because some people would automatically say that's great, we have this functionality, but we need to put all that on the table so people are clear. So let me get to Brandon, give him a chance, as the one of the twins have made an appearance and must be calling for some daddy duty time. Before we close it up, let me get Brandon's perspective, particularly from an independent such as Tennessee State, A&T, if you would, Hampton. What are your thoughts? Because I think in some ways you all may be thinking this is an opportunity to play what I'll say is a traditional HBCU game, adding that to the variable. So where are you in your perspective of this regular 12 game that could be considered for every year? You're on mute.
Sorry. You took some of the words right out of my mouth on that one, because I think by, particularly from an independent standpoint, getting that 12th game, there does arise that possibility of kind of getting one of those games against a team that the fan base can get energized about. Kind of taking off my TSU/independent hat, I think for some of the other situations, scheduling could be, and it's been brought up by these gentlemen prior to me, but just kind of find the games, because we've heard, sometimes it's not as simple as, hey, let's just slap a team on the schedule.
Great
we saw,
point.
the calamity that happened in the CIAA when St. Albans decided we're not playing football, and
Yeah.
it left teams scrambling to try to make schedules. So I
Right.
think that's something that has to be addressed. And I think at least in the infancy, if this comes to pass, you might have to see a more collaborative relationship amongst ADs and athletic administrators among other schools to try to have some type of framework to get these games in, to get that extra game where you got a A and a B opponent in case something happens. So I think it's really going to be not only interesting from the standpoint, but and an opportunity to see maybe some games that we may not get a chance to see year to year. But also, I'm interested to see from a collaborative and from a standpoint of thinking in this new environment how they're going to come together to get this extra game scheduled.
Well, it brings me to this last one, and this kind of goes against why Brandon would potentially want to see 12 games. And I want to focus a little bit on the SWAC. Obviously, we've heard the talk. Many people have. I shouldn't say obviously, but many people have heard the talk about people wrestling with the idea that the SEC may go to 9 games. Well, I want to take a play on that. I hadn't heard the discussion. What about the SWAC? Particularly, we're hearing again now that Jackson State and Southern are concerned with the fact that we're hearing that Jackson State and Southern will roll off each other's schedule over the next year or so. What about the SWAC with this idea of moving to a 9-game conference schedule where it's not just FAMU and Alcorn that have a guaranteed crossover matchup, but now potentially more teams or all teams could have one guaranteed cross-up because you're playing now 9 games. You're 5 in the conference and 4 from the intra-divisional matchup. What are your thoughts on that? And I'll go to you first, Drew.
The only thing from where I sit at as a fan, if we go 9 games, we have to eliminate the divisions. That's the only thing that makes sense with the 9-game schedule because you're playing almost as many outside of your division in the current format as in the division. So it's not fair to leave it East versus West at that point because you would be playing five division games and 4 non-division games. So you might as well just throw everybody in the pot and 1 versus 2 go to the championship game.
So I was about to say,
format.
I'm going to go to you, Charles, with that so you can put your question on it and concern with it. But I want to add that scheduling-wise, while you could have the argument and set everybody up, essentially from a scheduling perspective, you're still doing divisions. You're just not having your final standing in division.
Right. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah. But, Charles, go ahead and ask your question that you wanted to follow up before we jump in and get your opinion on the 9-game. Or it may involve part of your thought process of your comments about it.
I mean, does a much? I guess does it create more interest within the conference when you don't have East v West, but you get to find the best 2 teams left standing playing for the SWAC championship?
Ooh, can I take that one for $300, Dr. Cavil?
Sure.
Because it's cyclical, right?
But Charles, have you seen what has happened in the SIAC over the last 2 years since they went away from divisions? We went from one side being decided and the other side maybe having 1 or 2 teams to the last week of the season. You've come down where you've had 5-6 teams in the race on the last week of the season, depending on who beats who and everything else. Some games are heads up, some games I need some help. So I think it actually draws more fans in and keeps the interest higher because there are many different scenarios, especially for that rare instance where 2 of those teams actually didn't play each other. So you really do have to watch the scoreboard and wait on somebody else to win or lose.
Good point. And I want to put a caveat there that I think that does have some points. But one thing that I'm always fascinated in over the last 4 years, since we talk about that FAMU and Bethune-Cookman are official graduates now in the conference because they've had one freshman class over a 4-year period that actually has all they know is SWAC membership. Is the fact that it's only the first year that there would have been a change in the championship game, regardless if you would have had the division matchups or just one pure standing. It was only the first year that it would have made a difference. People keep clamoring about it, but if you look at how it fell out the last 3 years, regardless, the team that played in the championship would have played in the championship if they had the same schedule output, regardless if they weren't doing divisions. It would have fell out that way in terms of tiebreakers, would have had the same team in it. So I want to go to you, Brandon, and get your perspective, and then we'll close it, let everybody get back to the rest of the day and let the lab listeners out there debate this even more about going to a 9-game schedule. I know this makes it a little bit more of a challenge in regards to the reason why you may would like to see it in terms of how it may positively affect the independents, and this might throw this off a little bit. But if you will look at it from outside of the lens into the SWAC, what are your thoughts potentially of a SWAC going to a 9-game conference schedule versus the 8 that they have now?
I think, as you said, you might have to kind of do away with divisions, or you would have to wait more potentially in the division instead of. Well, I don't know. You know what? Now that I'm thinking, you might have to, because 5 versus 4. I mean, I think you would really have to look at your current setup in terms of that, and you might have to, like I said, you could look at conferences like the SIAC and see how those conference races have went down to where you've had multiple teams still with something to play for in the last week of the season, which I think is not only keeps those fan bases engaged, but those teams and players as well. So when they're sitting there looking at that, that's something you have to consider, because you'd like to have most of your games be in your conference or in your division if you're still going to keep that model. So if you go to this, you may have to look at some reconfiguring in terms of who's where and whether you still want to even have that divisional framework.
Good stuff. I want to add this, as G Boom talked about that, and I was going to bring this up as well as we officially come to a close of the show. I'd like to see what people think in the debates out there. SWAC did do a 9-game conference. For those that may not realize that they also did just a divisional conference where only your division, while you could play crossovers, only your division standings counted in terms of who's going to play in the championship. So some of these are iterations, and just like you had it in the past one time, you have it again, but there may be different reasons why you go back to it. So I wanted to bring it back to the table from that perspective to see, as the conferences expanded, different frameworks of why you would do something would be interesting, particularly as we go into next week, as you have the SWAC spring meetings. You never know what's going to be discussed. So I wanted to put that out there a little bit. With that being said, I want to say thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab of the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop, 80 Drew, and giving us these updates as well as Brandon King. Want to say we look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. You know, we're always here Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. And traditionally on Wednesday, we didn't have the end of report. Things didn't work out, but they'll be back next week on Wednesdays. And you know, in the fall, we'll be back to our Sunday morning edition at 9 o'clock. We'll make sure that Charles continues to get up. He's kind of talked about me in terms of how I am interrupting his golf game, but we'll see if we can work it out for him, as he's got some new cleats and some golf things that he's wanting to get out there that I'm taking away from his money sack. But yeah, that's a whole different question. I thought I paid him enough, but he seems to be making some money out there as well. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm just saying. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, DrKenyattaCavil. That's on Thread, Facebook and Instagram. Go ahead, Charles.
It's the non-taxable money. Yeah.
Hey, don't say that too loud. They gonna come looking for you.
Right.
Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Facebook, YouTube. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon, as we say. That was just a joke from Charles. Don't look for it. He's joking with y'all. This is for entertainment purposes. With that being said, Charles.
Of course.
Drew.
Lecture.
Brandon.
Yes.
Travel light.